Sarah Chen gripped the steering wheel harder as snow pelted her windshield. Interstate 80 through Nebraska was hell in winter, but the money was good. Medical bills for Emma's treatment didn't pay themselves. The figure appeared in her headlights like a ghost, a man thumb out, soaking wet in the middle of nowhere. Every trucker knew you don't stop for hitchhikers, ever. But something made her break. He climbed into the passenger seat without a word, dripping water onto the floor mat. His clothes looked wrong, fabric too smooth, cut too precise. No luggage, no phone visible. Just a small silver case clutched against his chest. "Drive to Colorado," he said. His voice was steady, urgent. "I'll give you $5,000 cash. Right now, no questions." Sarah's hands shook. $5,000 would cover Emma's next round of treatments. Maybe 2 rounds. She looked at him properly. Mid-30s, dark hair, exhausted eyes that had seen too much. He pulled out a stack of bills, placed them on the dashboard. Real cash, crisp and new. "This is crazy," Sarah whispered. "I know," he said. "But you need this money, and I need to reach Colorado before they find me." "Who's they?" He glanced at the side mirror, jaw tight. "People who don't want me here." Sarah thought about Emma in the hospital bed, about the bills stacking up, about her ex-husband who'd stopped sending support 6 months ago, about being 38 years old and one medical emergency away from bankruptcy. She put the truck in gear. "What's your name?" she asked. "Daniel," he said. "And thank you. You have no idea what you just did." Sarah merged back onto the highway, snow swirling in the darkness. The cash sat between them, more money than she'd seen in months. She tried not to think about why someone would pay that much for a simple ride. Daniel stared out the window, that silver case still pressed against his ribs like it contained his life. "You running from the law?" Sarah asked. "Something like that," he said quietly. She should have kicked him out right then. Should have called the state police. But the bills were real, and Emma needed medicine, and sometimes desperate people made desperate choices. The highway stretched ahead, empty and white. Sarah's CB radio crackled with static. Other truckers reporting road conditions, weather updates, nothing unusual. Daniel pulled out a device from his pocket. It looked like a phone, but wasn't. The screen glowed with symbols Sarah didn't recognize, numbers counting down in a language she couldn't read. "How long to Colorado?" he asked. 8 hours, Sarah said. "Maybe 10 in this weather." "We have less time than that," Daniel said, and something in his voice made Sarah's blood run cold. She glanced at her mirrors. Nothing but darkness and snow. But Daniel was staring at that strange device, and his expression had gone from tired to terrified. "Drive faster," he whispered. "Please. They're already looking." Sarah pushed the truck to 70, maybe too fast for the conditions. The snow was getting heavier. Daniel kept checking that device, his thumb swiping across the screen in the patterns that made no sense. "Who's looking for you?" Sarah demanded. "I need to know what I'm getting into." Daniel didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the side mirror. Sarah checked her own mirror and felt her stomach drop. 3 black SUVs, running without headlights, closing the distance fast. Government plates, she could tell even in the dark. The kind of vehicles that didn't belong on empty highways at 2 in the morning. "Take the next exit," Daniel said, his voice sharp. "Don't signal, just take it." "That's Route 33, Sarah said. "That goes nowhere." "Exactly," Daniel said. "Do it now." Sarah jerked the wheel right, the truck fishtailing slightly on the icy off-ramp. Behind them, the SUVs hesitated for just a moment before following. "They're still coming," Sarah said, her heart hammering. "I know," Daniel muttered. He was doing something with that device, his fingers flying across the surface. Sarah caught glimpses of maps that looked wrong, overlays of light and color that shouldn't exist on any GPS. "What did you do?" she asked. "What did you steal?" "I didn't steal anything," Daniel said. "I brought something back." "Back from where?" He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Sarah saw something in his eyes that made her hands shake on the wheel. "From a place you haven't been yet," he said quietly. Sarah's mouth went dry. "That's insane." "Is it?" Daniel held up the device. "This doesn't exist in your time. Neither does the tech in those SUVs chasing us. They're using equipment that won't be standard issue for another 3 years. You're saying you're from the future. I'm saying you picked up the wrong hitchhiker," Daniel said, "or the right one, depending on how the next few hours go." Sarah wanted to stop the truck, wanted to push him out into the snow and drive away and pretend this never happened. But the SUVs were gaining, and that cash was still on the dashboard, and something about Daniel's voice made her believe him. "Turn left at the grain elevator," he said. "How do you know there's a grain elevator?" "Because I've driven this route before," Daniel said. 6 years from now, with you." Sarah's blood turned to ice. "What?" "The next exit," Daniel said, ignoring her question. "Take it. There's a service road. They won't expect it." Sarah took the turn. The truck bounced onto gravel, headlights cutting through falling snow. Behind them, the SUVs split up, trying to box them in. Daniel touched his device to the truck's dashboard. Something hummed, low and electric, making Sarah's teeth ache. "What did you just do?" she whispered. "Bought us 30 seconds, Daniel said. "Maybe 40 if we're lucky." The SUVs slowed, their drivers looking confused. Sarah watched in her mirror as they seemed to lose track of the truck, their vehicles drifting past the service road like they couldn't see it anymore. They drove in silence for 20 minutes, taking back roads Sarah barely knew existed. Daniel navigated from memory, calling out turns before she saw the signs. The SUVs didn't follow. Finally, Sarah pulled into an abandoned gas station, killed the engine. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip the wheel. "Explain," she said, "right now, or I'm calling the cops." Daniel set the silver case on the dashboard between them. Up close, Sarah could see it wasn't metal. The surface rippled like liquid, catching light in ways that made her head hurt. "That money I gave you," Daniel said. "Look at it closer." Sarah picked up one of the bills. In the dome light, she could see the details. The portrait was right. The treasury seal looked perfect. But the serial number was wrong. The pattern didn't match any currency she'd ever handled. And there, in the corner, so small she almost missed it, a date printed in microtext. 2029. Sarah dropped the bill like it burned her. "That's a misprint." "No," Daniel said quietly. "It's not." She grabbed another bill. Same date. Another. Same. All of them marked with years that hadn't happened yet. "This is counterfeit," Sarah said, but her voice wavered. "It's real currency," Daniel said. "Legal tender, just not from your time." Sarah's mind raced. This was impossible. Had to be. But the bills felt right. Looked right, except for those dates. And that device on the dashboard, the way the SUVs had lost track of them, Daniel knowing roads before he saw them. "Prove it," she whispered. "Prove you're from the future." Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out a newspaper. Actual paper, yellowed at the edges, folded carefully. He handed it to her. The Denver Post. The masthead was familiar, but the date at the top made Sarah's vision blur. March 15th, 2031. The headline screamed in bold letters, "Denver collapse. 40,000 confirmed dead." Sarah's hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. Photos of devastation, a crater where downtown Denver used to be. Emergency services, survivors covered in dust. The governor declaring a state of emergency. "This is fake," Sarah said. "Someone mocked this up." "Photoshop, whatever." "Page 12, Daniel said. "Obituaries, middle column." Sarah didn't want to look. Every instinct told her to throw the paper away, start the truck, drive home. But her fingers turned the pages anyway. And there, in the middle column, surrounded by other names, other faces, Chen, Sarah Marie, age 44, survived by daughter Emma Chen, age 9. The photo was her driver's license picture. The date of death was March 14th, 2031. Sarah stopped breathing. "That's not possible," she whispered. "I have 3 other newspapers," Daniel said gently. "Different publications. All from 2031. All listing you." Sarah threw open the truck door and vomited into the snow. Her whole body shook, cold sweat mixing with the freezing air. Daniel stayed in the passenger seat, giving her space. When she could breathe again, she climbed back in, slamming the door. The newspaper was still there, her obituary still printed in black and white. "Why?" she gasped. "Why show me this? Why tell me I'm going to die?" "Because in the original timeline, I didn't," Daniel said. "I never made contact, never picked you up, never warned you. And you died along with 39,999 other people." Sarah stared at him. Her reflection looked ghostly in the window. A woman who apparently had less than 6 years to live. "What happens in Denver?" she whispered. "A facility loses containment," Daniel said. Experimental quantum research. Reality collapses inward. Everyone within 2 miles just stops existing. That's insane. That's science fiction. So, is time travel? Daniel said. But I'm here. And that newspaper is real. And those SUVs chasing us are real. They're trying to stop me from reaching you because changing your timeline changes everything else. Sarah looked at the cash on the dashboard, at the impossible newspaper, at the man who claimed to be from her daughter's future. Her mind couldn't process it, wouldn't process it. Take me home, she said. Right now. I want to see Emma. That's the worst thing you could do, Daniel said quickly. If you deviate from your route, if you call her, if you change anything about today, it creates ripples. Other travelers will notice, and they're not all trying to save you. Other travelers, Sarah repeated numbly. There are rules, Daniel said. Regulations. The agency I work for, the one sending those SUVs, they monitor timeline changes. I broke protocol coming back. They want to stop me before I alter too much. So what, I'm supposed to just keep driving to Colorado? Drive to the place where I apparently die in 6 years? No, Daniel said. You're supposed to help me prevent it. The facility that causes the collapse, it's being built now. In your time. If we can stop construction, if we can change the permits, reroute funding, the collapse never happens. And I don't die. And 40,000 people don't die. Sarah leaned her head against the steering wheel. Emma was 9 now, in 2025. In the newspaper, she was still 9 in 2031, which meant Sarah had 6 more years. 6 years to watch her daughter grow up. Or 6 years to figure out how to prevent her own death. How do I know you're telling the truth? Sarah asked. How do I know this isn't some elaborate con? You don't, Daniel said honestly. But in about 15 minutes, your phone is going to ring. It'll be your ex-husband. He's going to tell you Emma's fever broke, that the doctors found a treatment that's working. Sarah's breath caught. Emma had been running a fever for 3 days. The doctors were still running tests. How do you know that? Because it happened, Daniel said. In my timeline, in every timeline. It happens in 15 minutes. And if I'm right about that, you'll know I'm right about everything else. They drove in tense silence. Sarah kept checking the clock on the dashboard. 12 minutes, 10, 8. Her phone sat in the cup holder, dark and silent. Daniel stared out at the snow. He looked exhausted, like someone who'd traveled further than miles could measure. The device in his hand kept counting down numbers she couldn't read. 6 minutes. You said you work for an agency? Sarah said. What kind of agency? Temporal Conservation Bureau, Daniel said. We monitor the timeline, fix paradoxes, prevent catastrophic changes. Usually, sometimes we cause them by trying to prevent them, he admitted. Time isn't linear, it's more like a river. You can divert the flow, but water always finds a way. And you diverted it by coming back for me. I broke every protocol we have, Daniel said quietly. Stole equipment, falsified jump coordinates. My career is over. Probably my freedom too, if they catch me. Why? Sarah asked. Why risk everything for someone you don't know? I do know you, Daniel said. Just not yet. Not in your time. What does that mean? 4 minutes. Sarah's phone lit up. She grabbed it so fast she nearly dropped it. Unknown number. Her hands shook as she answered. Sarah? Her ex-husband's voice, the first time she'd heard it in months. I'm at the hospital. Emma's fever broke. Doctors found something in her blood work, some kind of immune response they hadn't seen before. They're saying she's going to be fine. Sarah closed her eyes. Tears streamed down her face. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for calling. She hung up, looked at Daniel. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Sad, maybe. Or regretful. You knew, she said. You knew exactly when he'd call, what he'd say. I've lived this day before, Daniel said, just from a different angle. Sarah wiped her eyes, gripped the steering wheel. The newspaper was still there, her obituary still visible. But now it felt different, more real, more terrifying. Because if Daniel was right about Emma, he was right about everything else. Start the truck, Daniel said gently. We need to keep moving. Those SUVs won't stay lost forever. Sarah started the engine. Her whole worldview had shattered in the last hour, but Emma was going to be okay. That was what mattered. That was what kept her hands steady as she pulled back onto the road. "Where exactly are we going?" she asked. "Colorado Springs," Daniel said. "There's someone there who can help, someone who has access to the construction permits for the facility. If we can convince her to delay the project, even by a few months, it changes the timeline enough." "And that saves me?" "That saves everyone," Daniel said. Sarah drove. The snow was letting up. Dawn was maybe 2 hours away. And somewhere ahead, in a city she'd driven through 100 times, her future waited. A future she apparently didn't survive, unless Daniel was telling the truth, unless she could change it. The sun rose over frozen fields, painting the snow in shades of pink and gold. Sarah had been driving for 6 hours straight, fueled by bad coffee and terror. Daniel dozed in the passenger seat, that silver case still clutched against his chest like a lifeline. Sarah's mind wouldn't stop spinning. Every time she tried to accept what he'd told her, her brain rejected it. Time travel was impossible. The newspaper had to be fake. The phone call was coincidence. But coincidence didn't explain how Daniel knew exactly when her ex would call, down to the minute. He stirred awake as they crossed the Colorado border, checked his device, frowned. "Something wrong?" Sarah asked. "We're running out of time," Daniel said. "The device, it's battery-powered, 47 hours of charge when I jump back. We're down to 38. What happens when it dies?" "I get stuck here," Daniel said. "Permanently, no way home." "So, why risk it?" Sarah asked. "Why come back at all if you might never return?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "Because some things are worth being stranded for." Before Sarah could ask what he meant, her phone rang again. "Don't answer it," Daniel said sharply. "It's Emma," Sarah said, seeing her daughter's number. "I have to." She answered. "Mom?" Emma's voice, small and scared. "Mom, someone called me, a lady. She said she knew you, said you were in trouble." Sarah's blood turned cold. "What lady? What did she say?" "She knew things, Mom. She knew about my fever. She knew you were driving to Colorado. She said," Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "She said, 'You're going to die if you don't come home right now.'" Daniel grabbed Sarah's arm. "Hang up. Now." "Who was she, Emma?" Sarah demanded. "I don't know. She knew everything, even things I never told anyone." "Listen to me," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. "That lady is lying. I'm fine. I'm working. I'll be home in a few days, okay?" "But Mom," Emma started. "I love you," Sarah said. "Remember that. No matter what, I love you." She hung up, looked at Daniel. His face had gone pale. "Someone else came back," he said quietly. "What?" "Another traveler. Someone who knows about the timeline change. Someone who's trying to stop us." Sarah's hands gripped the wheel so hard her knuckles went white. "Who would try to stop us from preventing a disaster?" "Someone who thinks the disaster needs to happen," Daniel said. "Someone who believes 40,000 deaths are necessary." "That's insane." "There are people in the agency who believe in timeline preservation at any cost," Daniel said. "They think changing major events creates worse outcomes. They'd rather let Denver happen than risk the alternative." "What alternative?" Daniel looked at her, and Sarah saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Fear. "The reason I came back," he said slowly, "isn't just about Denver. It's about what happens after. In the timeline where you survive, where we prevent the collapse, something else happens, something that changes everything." "What?" Sarah demanded. "Your daughter," Daniel said quietly. Sarah jerked the truck to the side of the road, tires skidding on ice. She slammed it into park and turned to face Daniel, her whole body shaking. "What about my daughter?" she said, her voice dangerous. Daniel wouldn't meet her eyes. "In the timeline where you survive Denver, where we prevent the collapse, Emma grows up. Normal childhood, healthy, happy. She graduates high school in 2038, goes to college." "That's good," Sarah said. "That's what I want." Then in 2041, she takes a job at a research facility, medical research, cutting-edge work on genetic therapies. Sarah waited, her heart pounded. "She gets exposed to something," Daniel said quietly. "A virus, experimental. It's an accident, complete accident. But she becomes patient zero. And by 2043, 4 million people are dead." Sarah couldn't breathe. The truck felt too small, the air too thin. "You're lying," she whispered. Daniel pulled out another device, smaller than the first. He touched the screen, and a video played. A news report from a future that hadn't happened yet. The anchor's voice was somber, professional, describing a pandemic. And there, in the hospital footage, wearing an isolation suit, was Emma. Older, maybe 26 or 27, but unmistakably her daughter. Patient zero, the reporter said. The accidental source of the outbreak that has killed millions. Sarah grabbed the device, threw it across the cab. It clattered against the door but kept playing. "That's not real," Sarah said. "You faked it? You're trying to manipulate me." "I wish I was," Daniel said. "God, I wish I was." Sarah's mind raced. This couldn't be true. Couldn't be possible. She'd spent 3 years fighting for Emma's health. 3 years of hospitals and bills and prayers. And now this man was saying her daughter would cause a plague? "So what?" Sarah said, her voice breaking. "What are you really here for? To kill her? To prevent her from being born?" "No," Daniel said quickly. "Never. I'm here to save both of you." "How?" Sarah demanded. "How do you save me from Denver and save Emma from becoming a murderer?" "She's not a murderer," Daniel said firmly. "She's a victim. The facility she works for in 2041, it's the same company that builds the Denver Quantum Lab. If we stop them now, stop the funding, delay the permits, both timelines change. Denver never collapses. Emma never takes that job. 4 million people don't die." Sarah leaned her head against the steering wheel. This was too much, too big. Her brain couldn't process the weight of it. "There's someone else who came back," she said finally. "Someone who called Emma." "Are they trying to make sure I die in Denver?" "Probably," Daniel said. "Or make sure Emma never grows up at all." Sarah's blood turned to ice. They'd hurt her? They'd hurt a child? They'd sacrifice one to save millions, Daniel said. That's how they justify it. Sarah looked at the road ahead. Colorado Springs was maybe 3 hours away. Behind them, somewhere, were people hunting them. People who thought her daughter was better off dead. "Drive," she said, starting the engine. "Whatever we're doing it fast. Because nobody threatens my daughter. Nobody." They stopped for gas outside a town too small to have a name. Sarah filled the tank while Daniel went inside to pay, keeping his head down, that silver case hidden under his jacket. Sarah's hands shook as she replaced the nozzle. She kept looking over her shoulder, expecting black SUVs to appear, expecting men in suits to grab her, drag her away. But there was nothing. Just wind and empty highway and the 2 bright fluorescent lights of the gas station. Daniel came back carrying bottled water and protein bars. They ate in silence as Sarah drove, the food tasteless in her mouth. She couldn't stop thinking about Emma, about timelines where her daughter either didn't exist or existed as a killer. No, not a killer, a victim, like Daniel said. "Tell me about the device," Sarah said finally. "How does it work?" "Temporal displacement field generator," Daniel said. "It creates a bubble around the user that exists outside normal space-time. You're not really traveling. You're just stepping sideways into a different moment. That doesn't make sense." "Think of time like a highway," Daniel said. "You're driving forward, right? Normal time. But what if you could pull off the road, drive across the median, merge onto the highway at an earlier point?" Sarah glanced at the case. "How far can it go?" "This model? About 10 years in either direction. There are bigger ones, industrial units, that can jump 50 years or more. But they require massive power. This one runs on something like a battery, advanced fusion cell, 47 hours of charge. And you said you're down to what, 38? 36 now," Daniel corrected. "It drains faster when we're being tracked. The refraction field I used to hide us from the SUVs, that cost us 2 hours of power. Sarah did the math. 36 hours. That gave them maybe a day and a half before Daniel was stuck in 2025 forever. "What happens to you if you can't get back?" she asked. "I disappear," Daniel said quietly. "Officially, I mean. I was never born yet in your time. No identity, no records. I'd have to build a life from nothing. Stay hidden. Hope the agency doesn't find me and extract me." "Extract?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "Let's just say they have ways of dealing with rogue travelers. None of them pleasant." Sarah felt a surge of guilt. This man had risked everything to save her, to save Emma, to save 40,000 people he'd never meet. And she'd spent the last few hours doubting him. "Thank you," she said quietly. Don't thank me yet, Daniel said. We still have to actually stop the facility, and we're running out of time. He checked his device again, frowned. What? Sarah asked. We're being followed again, he said. Different vehicle, not government, private. The other traveler, the one who called Emma? Probably, Daniel said. She's good, better than me at tracking. We need to lose her before Colorado. Springs. Sarah pressed the accelerator. The truck picked up speed, 75, 80. The engine roared. Behind them, just visible in the mirrors, a dark sedan appeared, matching their speed, closing the distance. Hold on, Sarah said, and pushed the truck even faster. The sedan stayed with them through every turn, every acceleration. Sarah pushed the truck to its limit, engine screaming, but the car kept pace. Whoever was driving knew what they were doing. Daniel watched his device, his face grim. She's using a tracker, he said, locked onto my temporal signature. We can't outrun her. Then what do? Sarah demanded. We stop running, Daniel said. Before Sarah could argue, he pointed to a rest stop ahead. Pull in there, act normal, let her approach. Are you insane? Sarah said. Trust me, Daniel said. I need to talk to her. Sarah took the exit, her heart hammering. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a few semis and one RV. She pulled into a space near the building, killed the engine. The sedan pulled in 2 spaces over. The driver's door opened and a woman stepped out. 40-something, athletic build, dark coat. She looked like she could be a federal agent or a school teacher. Nothing about her screamed time traveler, except her eyes. They had that same look Daniel's did, like they'd seen too much. She walked over to Sarah's truck, knocked on the window. Sarah rolled it down, her hand near her phone, ready to call for help if she needed to. Sarah Chen, the woman said. Her voice was calm, professional. My name is Victoria. I'm from the same agency as Daniel, same time. But I'm here for a different reason. To stop us, Daniel said from the passenger seat. To make sure Sarah dies in Denver. To make sure 4 million people don't die in 2043, Victoria corrected. She looked at Sarah. He told you about your daughter? About what happens? She told me lies, Sarah said. They're not lies, Victoria said sadly. I wish they were. But I've seen that timeline. I've walked through cities where the plague hit. I've seen the mass graves. Your daughter doesn't mean for it to happen, but it happens. And it starts because you survived Denver. So what? Sarah said, her voice shaking. You want me to just drive into that collapse? Let myself die? I want you to understand the choice, Victoria said. 40,000 in Denver, or 4 million worldwide. If you were in my position, what would you choose? I'd choose to save my daughter, Sarah said. Even if saving her kills millions? Sarah didn't answer. Victoria leaned against the truck. Look, I know this is impossible. I know you're terrified. But think about those 4 million people. They have daughters too. Sons, families, lives. Are they worth less than Emma? They're not worth more, Sarah said. Aren't they? Victoria asked. 4 million versus 1. The math is clear. People aren't math, Daniel said angrily. No, Victoria agreed. But someone has to make the hard choices. Someone has to look at the numbers and decide. And you decided my daughter dies, Sarah said. I decided 40,000 is better than 4 million, Victoria said. I'm sorry, Sarah, truly. But if you keep driving to Colorado Springs, if you stop that facility from being built, you're killing millions. Can you live with that? Sarah looked at Daniel. He met her eyes. There's another way, he said quietly. There has to be. Victoria shook her head. There's no other way. I've run the simulations. Every timeline where Sarah survives Denver leads to the plague. Every single one. Then we change more than Denver, Daniel said. We change everything, the whole company. Shut it down completely. You can't, Victoria said. That company develops technology that saves millions in other ways. Medical advances, clean energy, climate solutions. Shut them down, and those innovations never happen. More people die in the long run. Sarah felt like she was drowning. Every choice was death. Every timeline was tragedy. There has to be a way to save everyone, she said desperately. There isn't, Victoria said gently. I'm sorry, but you have to choose. Die in Denver or watch your daughter cause a plague. What if I just don't go to Denver at all? Sarah asked. What if I turn around right now, drive home, never go near Colorado again? Then the Denver collapse still happens, Victoria said. You're not the trigger, you're just one of the victims. But if you survive, Emma takes that job in 2041. The timeline doesn't change unless you're there. Sarah's head spun. Unless I'm there doing what? Daniel grabbed her arm. Don't listen to her. She's manipulating you. I'm telling her the truth, Victoria said. Something you haven't done. Sarah looked between them. What truth? What haven't you told me? Daniel's face had gone pale. Sarah, I came back for a reason. A personal reason. Tell her, Victoria said. Tell her why you really want to save her. Daniel closed his eyes. In the timeline where you survive, where Emma grows up, she gets married in 2043, has a daughter in 2045, and that daughter, she's mine. Sarah's breath stopped. What? I marry Emma, Daniel said quietly, in another timeline, one that hasn't happened yet. She's my wife. And our daughter, Sarah. She's named Sarah. After you. The world tilted. Sarah grabbed the steering wheel to steady herself. You? You're trying to save Emma so she can marry you? So you can have a child? I'm trying to save her because I love her, Daniel said desperately. Even though she hasn't met me yet. Even though in this timeline, I don't exist to her. I know it's selfish. I know it's wrong, but I can't let her die. I can't. Sarah couldn't process it. This man, this time traveler, was her future son-in-law, was trying to save his own wife, his own timeline, and Victoria was trying to kill them both. So, this isn't about saving people, Sarah said, her voice hollow. This is about your own futures, both of you. No, Victoria said. I have no personal stake. I'm doing this for the billions who don't even know they're at risk. Billions you'll never meet, Daniel shot back, while I'm trying to save the woman I love. Sarah opened the truck door, climbed out. She needed air, needed space, needed to think. Victoria followed her. Sarah, I know this is overwhelming, but you have a choice. Come with me. Don't go to Denver. Stay away. Emma grows up, never takes that job. The plague never starts. And the 40,000 in Denver still die, Sarah said. Yes, Victoria said, but it's a contained event. One city, one disaster, not a global pandemic. Sarah looked at the sky. Gray clouds rolling in, more snow coming. And somewhere ahead, in Colorado Springs, was a decision that would kill thousands or millions. No pressure. Sarah walked to the edge of the rest stop parking lot, staring at the empty highway. Behind her, she could hear Daniel and Victoria arguing, their voices rising. But their words didn't matter anymore, because Sarah finally understood. This wasn't about Denver, wasn't about the plague, it was about power. Victoria represented the agency, the people who thought they could control time, manage timelines like spreadsheets. 40,000 here, 4 million there, just numbers to be optimized. Daniel represented love, desperation, the selfish human impulse to save the people you care about, no matter the cost. And Sarah? She was just a truck driver who'd picked up the wrong hitchhiker. Except, that wasn't quite true either. Sarah pulled out her phone. She had 1 bar of signal out here, maybe enough. She dialed a number she'd memorized but never called. The line rang twice before someone answered. Sarah Chen, a woman's voice said. We've been monitoring your situation. Who is this? Sarah asked, though she already knew. Temporal Conservation Bureau, the voice said. You're currently in the presence of 2 unauthorized travelers. We need you to stay calm and wait for our team to arrive. Your team wants me dead, Sarah said. Our team wants to preserve the optimal timeline, the voice corrected. Sometimes that requires difficult choices, like letting 40,000 people die. The voice hesitated. We're prepared to offer you an alternative. Sarah's grip tightened on the phone. I'm listening. Return to your route, the voice said. Continue to Denver. We'll extract Daniel and Victoria. You forget this conversation ever happened. Resume your normal life. And when Denver happens in 6 years, you'll be safely in Nebraska. We'll make sure of it. So I live, Emma lives, and Denver still collapses, Sarah said. Yes. And 4 million people don't die from a plague, Sarah said. Because Emma never takes that job. Because I'm not there to influence her future. Correct, the voice said, but 40,000 still die. That event is already locked in, the voice said. We've tried changing it. Every attempt creates worse outcomes. Denver has to happen. But you don't have to be there. Sarah looked back at the truck. Daniel was standing now, arguing with Victoria. Two people from the future, fighting over timelines like children fighting over toys. What if I choose neither? Sarah asked. What if I don't go to Denver, don't go home? What if I just disappear? The voice went cold. That's not an option we can allow. Because it messes up your calculations, Sarah said. Because you need me to be in specific places at specific times. Timeline stability requires certain fixed points, the voice said. Sarah laughed, bitter and sharp. Fixed points. You mean people you've decided are expendable? Ms. Chen, please, the voice said. We're trying to help you. No, Sarah said. You're trying to control me. All of you. Daniel wants me alive so he can have his perfect family. Victoria wants me out of the way so her numbers work. And you want me to follow orders like a good little chess piece. We're running out of time, the voice said. Our team will arrive in approximately 12 minutes. Make your choice. I have, Sarah said. She hung up. Sarah walked back to the truck, her decision made. Daniel and Victoria stopped arguing when they saw her face. I'm not going to Denver, Sarah said. Not now, not ever. And I'm not going home either. Victoria's eyes widened. Sarah, you can't just... Where will you go? Somewhere you can't track me, Sarah said. Somewhere off your grid. I'll disappear. Take Emma somewhere remote. Change our names. And whatever happens in Denver, whatever happens with the plague, it won't be my responsibility. That's not how this works, Victoria said. You're a fixed point. The timeline needs you in specific locations. Then the timeline will have to adjust, Sarah said. Daniel grabbed her arm. Sarah, wait. If you disappear, I never meet Emma. My daughter never exists. Good, Sarah said coldly. Because I'm not raising my daughter to be your wife. She's 9 years old, Daniel, and you're talking about her like she's your property. Daniel flinched like she'd struck him. That's not... I love her. You love a version of her that doesn't exist yet, Sarah said. A version you've built in your head. But my Emma, the real Emma, she gets to choose her own future. Not you, not Victoria, not some agency. Her. You're making a mistake, Victoria said. Maybe, Sarah said. But it's my mistake. For the first time in my life, I'm making my own choice, not letting someone else decide for me. She climbed into the truck. Daniel stood frozen, the silver case clutched in his hands. You coming? Sarah asked. Or are you staying with her? Daniel looked at Victoria, then at Sarah. Then he got in the truck. Victoria stepped forward. You have 12 minutes, she called, maybe less. They're tracking this conversation. They know where you are. Then I guess we'd better move, Sarah said. She started the engine, peeled out of the parking lot. In the rearview mirror, Victoria was already on her phone, probably calling the agency, probably telling them everything. But Sarah didn't care anymore. Where are we going? Daniel asked quietly. Away, Sarah said. Anywhere but Colorado. They drove in silence for 20 miles. Daniel kept checking his device, watching the battery drain. 34 hours left. Then 33. Sarah, he said finally, I'm sorry. For not telling you everything. For trying to manipulate you. You're right. I was being selfish. Yeah, Sarah said. You were. But I do care about Emma, Daniel said, not just as my future wife, as a person. She's brilliant, funny, kind. She deserves to live. She'll live, Sarah said, just not the life you planned for her. Daniel nodded slowly. What about Denver? What about the 40,000? Sarah's hands tightened on the wheel. She'd been trying not to think about that. 40,000 people who would die in 6 years. People with families, with futures, with lives just as important as hers. But she couldn't save everyone. That was the truth nobody wanted to admit. She couldn't save Denver and Emma and herself and 4 million strangers. Someone had to lose. And Sarah had decided it wouldn't be her daughter, even if that made her a monster. They drove through the mountains, winding roads slick with ice. Sarah pushed the truck hard, taking turns too fast, putting distance between them and the rest stop. Between them and Victoria. Between them and whatever agency team was coming. Daniel was silent, staring at that device. The numbers kept counting down. Your battery, Sarah said. How much time? 32 hours, Daniel said. Less if I use the refraction field again. Don't, Sarah said. I'd rather they see us than you get stuck here with no way home. Even if that means they catch us? Even then. The road climbed higher, snow starting to fall again. Sarah's phone rang, unknown number. She ignored it. It rang again and again. Finally, she answered. What? Ms. Chen, the same woman's voice from before. You need to stop running. You're only making this harder. Harder for who? Sarah asked. You or me? We have your daughter, the voice said calmly. Sarah's blood turned to ice. The truck swerved, nearly hitting the guardrail. Daniel grabbed the wheel, helped her straighten out. You're lying, Sarah said. Emma is currently in protective custody, the voice said, for her own safety. She's asking for you. She's scared, Sarah. She doesn't understand why these people came to her school, why they took her out of class. Let me talk to her, Sarah demanded. Return to your assigned route. Resume your drive to Denver. We'll release Emma to your ex-husband within the hour. Sarah couldn't breathe. They had Emma. They'd taken her daughter. Hang up, Daniel said quietly. What? Hang up, he repeated. They're lying. You don't know that, Sarah said. Yes, I do. Because taking Emma creates a massive timeline disruption. They'd never risk it. They're bluffing. Sarah wanted to believe him, but the voice on the phone sounded so certain, so calm. Mom? A child's voice in the background, frightened. Mom, where are you? Emma, Sarah screamed. The line went dead. Sarah pulled over, shaking so hard she could barely put the truck in park. That was her. That was Emma's voice. It was a recording, Daniel said. From the hospital, probably. When you called before. They've been monitoring your phone. They had audio. How do you know? Because I know how they operate, Daniel said. They use fear. They manipulate, but they follow rules, and kidnapping a child from school would violate every temporal protocol. Sarah wanted to believe him, needed to believe him, but that voice had sounded so real. Call your ex, Daniel said, right now. Confirm Emma is safe. Sarah dialed with shaking hands. The phone rang 4 times, 5, 6. Then her ex-husband answered. Sarah, what's wrong? You sound, what happened? Is Emma there? Sarah asked desperately. Is she with you? She's at school, he said, confused. Where else would she be? Can you go get her? Right now. Tell the school it's an emergency. Bring her home. Sarah, what's going on? Just do it, Sarah said. Please. Trust me. She hung up before he could ask more questions. Daniel was right. They were bluffing. Emma was safe. For now. Sarah sat in the truck cab, head against the steering wheel, trying to stop shaking. They'd used Emma's voice. They'd mimicked her fear so perfectly that Sarah had almost believed it. These people, whoever they were, they didn't care about right or wrong. They only cared about their timelines, their calculations, their version of what should happen. We need to move, Daniel said gently. They'll use that call to track us. Sarah lifted her head. Her face felt wet. She hadn't realized she was crying. I can't do this, she whispered. I can't run forever. I can't hide. They'll always find us. Then we stop hiding, Daniel said. We go on offense. What does that mean? It means we don't prevent Denver, Daniel said. We survive it. Sarah stared at him. That's insane. You said reality collapses, that everyone within 2 miles dies. In the original timeline, yes, Daniel said. But I have technology from the future, equipment that can shield against temporal distortion. If we can get to Denver before the collapse happens, if we can be there with the right equipment, we can save people. Maybe not all 40,000, but some. And I still die, Sarah said bitterly. Not if we do it right, Daniel said. The newspaper said you died trying to evacuate people. Your body was never found. But what if that's because you didn't die? What if you survived but everyone assumed you didn't? Sarah's mind raced. A fake death. A way to satisfy the timeline without actually dying. Would that work? She asked. I don't know, Daniel admitted. But it's better than running. Better than letting all those people die without trying. Sarah looked at the road ahead. They were somewhere in the mountains, surrounded by snow and silence. Behind them, agents were hunting. Ahead, an impossible choice. But maybe Daniel was right. Maybe the answer wasn't running or hiding. Maybe it was standing up to the people who thought they could control time like it was a machine. Okay, Sarah said. We go to Denver. but not to die, to survive. Daniel's face broke into something like relief. Thank you for trusting me. I don't trust you, Sarah said honestly, but I trust them even less. She started the truck, pulled back onto the highway. The snow was falling heavier now, reducing visibility to maybe 20 feet. Perfect cover. Her phone rang again. She ignored it. They'll keep calling, Daniel said. Let them, Sarah said. I'm done listening to people who think my life is negotiable. They drove in silence for an hour, climbing higher into the mountains. The device in Daniel's hand showed 30 hours remaining. Time was running out. Finally, they crested a ridge and saw lights below. A small town, maybe a few hundred people. Gas stations, a diner, one motel. We should stop, Daniel said. Rest. Plan. I need to modify some equipment if we're going to survive Denver. Sarah took the exit. The town looked frozen in time, like something from a postcard. She pulled into the motel parking lot. 2 rooms? The clerk asked, barely looking up from his phone. 1, Sarah said. We're not letting each other out of sight. Daniel raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. The motel room smelled like old carpet and pine cleaner. Sarah locked the door, checked the windows, closed the curtains. Daniel set the silver case on the bed and opened it. Inside was technology that made Sarah's head hurt to look at. Components that seemed to shift and change. Circuitry that didn't follow any pattern she recognized. This is the displacement generator, Daniel said, pointing to a cylinder in the center. And these are shielding modules. Normally they are used to protect the traveler during a jump, but I can modify them to create a bubble that resists temporal distortion. How big a bubble? Sarah asked. Maybe 20 feet, Daniel said. Enough for a dozen people, maybe more if they're packed tight. That's not 40,000, Sarah said. No, Daniel agreed. But it's something. He worked in silence, using tools from the case that looked alien. Sarah sat on the bed, exhausted, watching him. Her phone buzzed constantly with unknown numbers. She turned it off. Why did you really come back? Sarah asked finally. And don't tell me it's just about Emma. There's something else. Daniel's hands stilled. He didn't look up. In the timeline where Emma becomes patient 0, he said quietly, where the plague kills 4 million people, I'm one of them. Sarah's breath caught. You die? Everyone at the wedding dies, Daniel said. Our wedding, Emma and me, 2043. We get married, the plague hits 2 weeks later. I last maybe a month before the virus takes me. So you came back to save yourself, Sarah said. I came back to save everyone, Daniel said. But yes, I'm included in that. Is that selfish? It's human, Sarah said. She thought about it. About how all of this, all the time travel and manipulation and desperate choices came down to people trying not to die, trying to save the ones they loved. Nothing cosmic, nothing grand, just fear and love and the desperate human need to survive. What happens if we succeed? Sarah asked. If we save Denver, if Emma never becomes patient 0, if 4 million people don't die? I don't know, Daniel said. That timeline hasn't been written yet. Maybe I still meet Emma. Maybe I don't. Maybe I don't even exist in that version of the future. Would you be okay with that? Sarah asked. Not existing? Daniel set down his tools, looked at her. If it means Emma gets to live, if it means you get to live, yes. I'd accept that. Sarah studied his face. She'd spent so much energy being angry at him, seeing him as selfish and manipulative. But maybe he was just broken, just another person trying to make sense of impossible choices. We should sleep, she said. We've got a long drive tomorrow. I'll take first watch, Daniel said, in case they find us. Sarah nodded, lay down on the bed fully clothed. Her body ached from 12 hours of driving. Her mind ached from everything she'd learned. But as she closed her eyes, she felt something unexpected. Hope, not much. Just a small spark. The hope that maybe, just maybe, they could change things. That the future wasn't fixed. That 40,000 people didn't have to die. That Emma could grow up free. That Sarah herself could survive. Maybe. Sarah woke to Daniel shaking her shoulder. It's time, he said quietly. They're here. She sat up, groggy. What? 3 vehicles, Daniel said, pointing at the window. Agency team. They found us. Sarah looked through a gap in the curtains. Sure enough, black SUVs in the parking lot. Men in dark suits, government plates. How? Sarah demanded. How did they find us? Your phone, probably, Daniel said. Even turned off. They can track it if they have the right equipment. Sarah cursed. She should have ditched it hours ago. Back exit? She asked. Already checked, Daniel said. 2 agents there. They've boxed us in. Sarah's mind raced. They were trapped. No way out. Unless, do you have enough power for that refraction field? The invisibility thing? Maybe 10 minutes, Daniel said. It'll drain the battery fast. 10 minutes to get to the truck, Sarah said. We'll have to try. Daniel nodded. He touched the device to his chest, then to Sarah. A strange sensation washed over her, like her skin was crawling with static. Stay close, Daniel whispered. Don't make noise. The field bends light but not sound. They slipped out the motel room door. Sarah's truck was parked 30 feet away, surrounded by agents. One was looking right at them, but his eyes slid past, seeing nothing. It was the strangest feeling, being invisible but not, existing but unnoticed. They moved slowly toward the truck. 20 feet, 15, 10. An agent's radio crackled. Subject's phone signal just moved. They're on the move. Sarah froze. But her phone was in her pocket, turned off. How could it? And then she understood. They were tracking the phone's battery, not the signal. Even powered down, it emitted a trace electromagnetic field. She pulled the phone from her pocket, threw it as hard as she could across the parking lot. It clattered against a dumpster. Every agent turned toward the sound. Sarah and Daniel ran for the truck. 5 feet. 3. Sarah grabbed the door handle, yanked it open. They dove inside. Sarah started the engine, threw it in reverse. An agent spun around, eyes widening as the truck seemed to appear from nowhere. He reached for his weapon. Sarah floored it. The truck shot backward, tires screaming. She spun the wheel, whipped around, shifted to drive. The refraction field flickered, failed. Suddenly, they were visible again. Gunfire erupted. Sarah ducked instinctively, but the bullets hit the truck's frame, not the cab. Warning shots, she realized. They didn't want her dead, just stopped. She drove straight at the SUVs. The agents scattered. She threaded between 2 vehicles, clipped a side mirror, kept going. Behind them, engines roared to life. How much power? Sarah yelled. 28 hours, Daniel yelled back. But that's not our biggest problem. What is? The facility in Denver. It goes live in 72 hours. We're running out of time. Sarah gripped the wheel, pushing the truck to 80, 90 on the mountain highway. Behind them, the SUVs kept pace. Then lose them, she said. Because we're going to Denver, and we're going to save those people, even if it kills us. The chase lasted 40 miles through mountain passes and switchbacks. Sarah drove like she was possessed, using every trick she'd learned in 20 years of trucking. The SUVs were faster, but her truck was heavier, more stable on ice. Daniel braced himself against the dashboard as Sarah took a curve too fast. They're not giving up, he said. Neither am I, Sarah said. She saw her chance, a logging road barely visible through the snow. She jerked the wheel right, the truck bouncing onto the unpaved path. Trees closed in on both sides. The SUVs tried to follow. The first one made it. The second got stuck in a snowdrift. The third kept going on the highway, maybe trying to circle around. 1-on-1, Sarah thought. Better odds. The logging road climbed higher, narrower. Sarah's truck barely fit. Branches scraped the sides, loud as gunfire. The SUV stayed close, its engine roaring. Then the road ended. Sarah slammed the brakes. The truck skidded to a stop at the edge of a drop-off. A sheer cliff, maybe 200 feet down to a frozen river. Dead end. The SUV stopped behind them. 2 agents got out, weapons drawn but not aimed. One of them approached, hands visible, non-threatening. Miss Chen, he called. We just want to talk. Sarah looked at Daniel. He shook his head. They're lying. How do you know? Because I used to be one of them, Daniel said. Before I went rogue, I know the protocols. They'll take us in, separate us, erase your memories of the last 2 days. You'll wake up in your truck in Nebraska with no idea any of this happened, and in 6 years, you'll drive to Denver and die. Sarah's hands tightened on the wheel. Then we fight. With what? Daniel asked. We have no weapons. We have this, Sarah said, pointing at the truck, and a cliff. You're insane, Daniel said. Yeah, Sarah agreed. I've been hearing that a lot lately. She rolled down the window. The agent approached carefully. "Let's talk about this," he said. "No one has to get hurt." "You're right," Sarah said. "No one does." She threw the truck in reverse, floored it. The truck shot backward. The agent dove out of the way. Sarah clipped the SUV's bumper, sent it spinning. Then she cranked the wheel, turned the truck around in a space that shouldn't have been possible, and drove back down the logging road. Behind them, the agent scrambled. The SUV was facing the wrong way, front tires in a ditch. It would take them minutes to recover, minutes they didn't have. Sarah drove faster than she should have, branches whipping the windshield. The truck bounced over rocks and ruts. Once, the rear tires lost traction, and they slid sideways for a terrifying moment before she recovered. Daniel was silent, gripping the door handle, his face pale. Finally, they reached the main highway. Sarah turned south, toward Denver, toward the facility, toward a future that hadn't been written yet. "Your battery?" she asked. 26 hours, Daniel said. "And the facility goes live in?" 68 hours, Daniel said. "We'll make it. Barely." Sarah drove through the night, watching the mirrors, waiting for headlights that didn't come. Maybe the agents had lost them. Maybe they'd given up. Or maybe they were waiting in Denver. They reached Colorado Springs just before dawn. Sarah pulled into a truck stop, filled the tank, bought coffee that tasted like motor oil. Every person she saw looked like a potential agent. Every car in the parking lot a potential threat. Daniel worked on the equipment while Sarah drove. He'd spread components across the passenger seat, connecting things that shouldn't connect, creating something that looked like a cross between a medical device and a bomb. "What is that?" Sarah asked. "Hope," Daniel said. "If it works," he explained as he worked. The temporal displacement generator could create a bubble of normal space-time. Inside the bubble, reality would remain stable even as it collapsed outside, like being in the eye of a hurricane. "How many people?" Sarah asked. "Depends on how tight they pack," Daniel said. 20, maybe 30 if they're willing to get close. "Out of 40,000, Sarah said numbly. "It's better than zero," Daniel said. "Is it?" Sarah asked. "Is saving 30 people and watching 40,000 die better than not trying at all?" Daniel looked at her. "Yes," he said simply. "Because those 30 people have families, lives, futures. You save who you can save. You don't let perfect be the enemy of good." Sarah drove in silence, thinking about that. Thinking about the mathematics of tragedy. Who lives, who dies, who gets to make those choices. Her phone, new burner she'd bought at the truck stop, rang. Only one person had the number. "Hey, sweetie," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Mom?" Emma sounded scared. "Where are you? Dad says you're coming home soon, but you sound weird when you call." "I'm working, baby," Sarah said. "Big job, but I'll be home in a few days. Promise?" Sarah looked at Daniel, at the device he was building, at the road ahead. "Promise," she said, hoping it wasn't a lie. "Mom," Emma said quietly. That lady called again. The one who knows things. Sarah's blood ran cold. "What did she say?" She said. Emma paused. She said, "You're going to Denver. That something bad is going to happen. That I should tell you to come home now." "Sweetie," Sarah said carefully, "that lady doesn't know anything. She's just trying to scare you." "She knew about your truck," Emma said. "The license plate, the miles on the odometer. How does she know that if she's lying?" Sarah had no answer. "Listen to me, Emma," Sarah said. "I need you to trust me, okay? I'm going to be fine, but I need you to ignore that lady. If she calls again, hang up. Tell Dad. Tell your teachers. Don't listen to anything she says." "Okay," Emma whispered. "I love you, Mom. I love you too," Sarah said, more than anything. She hung up, looked at Daniel. "Victoria," she said. "She's using my daughter to get to me." "She's scared," Daniel said. "Desperate. She knows we're close to changing the timeline. So, what do? We finish this," Daniel said. "We get to Denver. We save who we can save. And we prove that the future isn't fixed." Denver appeared on the horizon at sunset, skyline glowing gold and red. Sarah felt her stomach clench. Somewhere in that city, in 6 years, reality would collapse. 40,000 people would stop existing, unless she and Daniel could prevent it. "The facility is in the industrial district," Daniel said, checking his device. "Construction site now. It won't be finished for another 5 years. So, how does it cause a collapse in 6 years if it's not even built yet?" Sarah asked. Time traveler interference, Daniel said. In the original timeline, the facility opens on schedule, but someone, probably Victoria's people, went back and accelerated construction, changed permits, expedited inspections. They're trying to force the collapse to happen sooner. Why? Sarah asked. Because the sooner it happens, the sooner they can control the outcome, Daniel said. They've probably planted agents in the rescue teams, shaped the narrative, made sure history remembers it the way they want. Sarah's head spun. This wasn't just about preventing a disaster. It was about fighting people who could rewrite history. We need to find Victoria, Sarah said. She's the key to this. If we can stop her, maybe we stop everything. She's probably already here, Daniel said. Waiting. Then let's not disappoint her, Sarah said. They drove through downtown Denver, past buildings Sarah had seen 100 times on runs through the city. Everything looked normal, people going to work, cars in traffic, life happening like it always did. None of them knew that in 6 years, some of them would die, would cease to exist, would leave holes in reality where they used to be. The facility site was surrounded by chain-link fence. Construction equipment sat idle, covered in snow. A sign read, Future Home of Quantum Dynamics Research Center. Sarah parked a block away. They approached on foot, Daniel's device in his hand, counting down. 24 hours of power remaining. The fence had a gap, probably cut by homeless people looking for shelter. They slipped through, crossed the empty site. In the center stood a partially built structure, concrete and steel, rising 4 stories. Someone's here, Daniel whispered. Sarah saw her. Victoria, standing on the 2nd floor, visible through an empty window frame, just standing there, waiting. It's a trap, Sarah said. Of course it is, Daniel agreed. But we don't have a choice. They climbed the construction stairs, metal clanging under their feet. Victoria didn't move, didn't react. She just watched them come. When they reached the 2nd floor, Victoria smiled sadly. You came, she said. I wasn't sure you would. You've been using my daughter, Sarah said, voice hard, threatening a child. I've been trying to save her, Victoria corrected, and 4 million others. But you won't listen. Because you're asking me to die, Sarah said. I'm asking you to choose, Victoria said. 40,000 here, now, or 4 million later. That's the choice. That's always been the choice. Daniel stepped forward. There's another way. We can shield people. Save some of them. Victoria laughed, bitter. 30 people out of 40,000? And you call that a victory? It's better than 0, Daniel said. Is it? Victoria asked. Or is it just you making yourself feel better while 40,000 die anyway? Sarah looked between them, these 2 people from the future, fighting over timelines like gods. But they weren't gods. They were just people, scared, desperate people trying not to die, just like her. Victoria pulled out her own device, similar to Daniel's, but slightly different. I can end this right now, she said. Send you both back to where you started. Erase this timeline. Start over. You'd erase 2 days? Daniel asked. I'd erase 6 years, Victoria said. Jump back to 2019, before the facility was even proposed. Change it at the source. That's too far, Daniel said. Too many variables. You could destroy everything. Or save everything, Victoria countered. But I need your device. Mine doesn't have enough power for a jump that big. Together, we could do it. Sarah listened to them argue, her mind spinning. If Victoria jumped back 6 years, erased the facility before it started, would Sarah remember any of this? Would Emma still be safe? Would the plague still happen? No, Sarah said suddenly. Both of them stopped, looked at her. No more jumping, Sarah continued. No more changing timelines. No more treating people's lives like variables in an equation. Sarah, this is bigger than you, Victoria said. Is it? Sarah asked. Or is it just you, people trying to control things you don't understand? Playing God with time because you can? We're trying to save lives, Victoria said. By deciding who deserves to live, Sarah said. By choosing which 40,000 die here or which 4 million die there. Who gave you that right? Someone has to make these decisions, Victoria said. No, Sarah said. They don't. Maybe some things are supposed to happen. Maybe the universe doesn't need you constantly interfering. Daniel touched her arm. Sarah, if we do nothing, those 40,000 people still die. Sarah looked at him. Then we save who we can, with your device. your shield. We don't try to prevent it, we just try to survive it." "That's not enough," Victoria said. "It's all we have," Sarah said. "I'm done letting people from the future tell me what my present should look like." She turned to leave. Daniel hesitated, looked between her and Victoria, then followed. "You're making a mistake," Victoria called after them. "When Denver collapses, when those people die, their blood is on your hands." Sarah stopped, turned back. "No," she said. "Their blood is on whoever built that facility, whoever pushed the research forward without proper safety, whoever decided profit was more important than caution. Don't put their deaths on me, because I refuse to play your game." She and Daniel walked down the stairs, leaving Victoria alone on the second floor. Outside, in the cold Denver evening, Sarah breathed deeply. "Now what?" Daniel asked. "Now we wait," Sarah said. "Your device can shield people, right? When the collapse happens, if we're in position," Daniel said, "if we can get people inside the bubble, then that's what we do," Sarah said. "We don't prevent the disaster, we survive it, and we save everyone we can." Daniel looked at the partially built facility. "It won't be enough. You know that." "It never is," Sarah said. "But we try anyway. That's what humans do. We try." They spent the next 3 days preparing. Daniel refined the shield device, testing it in empty fields outside Denver, watching the bubble form and hold. Sarah studied maps of the facility area, calculated evacuation routes, figured out how to position people for maximum survival. It felt inadequate, hopeless even. 30 people saved against 40,000 lost. But it was something. On the third day, Victoria appeared at their motel. She looked exhausted, defeated. "I can't stop you," she said. "The agency pulled my authorization, said I was compromising the timeline by interfering too much." Sarah studied her. "So what now?" "Now I wait," Victoria said. "In 6 years the collapse happens. 40,000 die. You're one of them, Sarah, and I have to live knowing I could have prevented it." "You could have," Sarah agreed, "by killing my daughter, by making choices for people who didn't ask you to." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I wasn't trying to kill her. I was trying to save millions." "By sacrificing one," Sarah said. "That's always the excuse, isn't it? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. But Emma isn't a variable. She's my daughter." Victoria nodded slowly. "I hope you're right," she said. "I hope your choice doesn't doom us all." She left without another word. Daniel's device showed 18 hours of power remaining, enough to jump home, back to his own time, or enough to shield people when the collapse happened in 6 years. "What are you going to do?" Sarah asked him. "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "If I go back, Emma never meets me. My daughter never exists. That timeline dies. And if you stay, I'm stuck here," Daniel said. "In 2025, I'd have to build a life, wait 6 years for the collapse, hope the shield works. And even if Emma survives, she's 9 years old now. By the time she's old enough to meet me, I'll be," he calculated, 46. She'll be 21. "Maybe you don't have to wait," Sarah said quietly. "What do you mean?" "Emma needs a tutor," Sarah said. "Math and science. She's brilliant but struggling with some concepts. What if," she paused, "what if I hired you? As her tutor, you'd be around, not as a romantic interest, just as someone in her life. And when she's older, if something develops naturally, that's her choice." Daniel stared at her. "You'd let me do that? After everything?" "You came back to save her," Sarah said. "Despite your selfish reasons, despite wanting your own timeline, you risked everything. Emma deserves to know someone who cares about her that much." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," he whispered. The device in his hand counted down. 16 hours. 15. Sarah watched the numbers fall. In 6 years she might die, or she might survive and prove everyone wrong. Prove that the future wasn't fixed, that choices mattered, that one woman in a truck could change everything. Or maybe she'd just save 30 people and watch 40,000 die. But she'd do it her way, on her terms. And nobody, not the agency, not Victoria, not even Daniel, could take that from her. Sarah drove Daniel to a small house she'd rented on the outskirts of Denver. It would be his base for the next 6 years, his home, while he waited for a future that might never come. "I'll call you about tutoring Emma," Sarah said, "when I get home. We'll set up a schedule." "Thank you," Daniel said again. "For everything." "Don't thank me yet," Sarah said. "We still don't know if any of this works." She left him there, standing in the doorway of a house in a time that wasn't his, holding a device that counted down his only way home. 14 hours remaining. The drive back to Nebraska took 12 hours. Sarah's mind was quiet, emptied out by exhaustion and the weight of everything she'd learned. The highway stretched ahead, familiar and unchanging. When she pulled into her driveway, Emma burst out the front door and ran to the truck. Sarah caught her, held her tight, breathing in the smell of her daughter's shampoo. "I missed you, Mom," Emma said. "I missed you too, baby," Sarah said, "more than you know." That night, after Emma went to bed, Sarah sat alone in the kitchen. She pulled out the newspaper Daniel had given her, the one from 6 years in the future. Her obituary was still there, black letters on yellowing paper. Chen, Sarah Marie, died March 14th, 2031. Sarah stared at it for a long time. Then she folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. It was a future, but not the only future, and she had 6 years to prove it wrong. The months passed. Daniel became Emma's tutor, showing up twice a week to help with math and science. Emma adored him, said he explained things in ways that finally made sense. Sarah watched them together, this man from the future teaching her daughter, preparing her for a timeline nobody could predict. Years passed. Emma grew. Sarah kept driving, kept living, kept making choices that were hers and nobody else's. And somewhere in a government office, in a time that hadn't happened yet, people monitored timelines and calculated outcomes and decided who lived and who died. But Sarah Chen was done letting them decide for her. March 14th, 2031 arrived on a Tuesday. Sarah woke up in a Denver hotel, Daniel in the room next door. They'd planned for this day for 6 years, marking it on calendars, preparing equipment, running drills. The facility, now fully operational, hummed with quantum energy. Researchers moved through corridors, unaware of what was coming, unaware that in 8 hours, reality would collapse and 40,000 people would die, unless Sarah and Daniel could save some of them. Emma was safe in Nebraska, grown now, 17 years old, starting college in the fall. Sarah had made sure of that, made sure her daughter was hundreds of miles away when the collapse happened. Daniel's shield device was ready, modified and refined over 6 years. The battery was fully charged. They had one shot. Sarah looked at herself in the hotel mirror, 44 years old, gray hair starting to show, lines around her eyes from years of driving, years of worry, years of choosing. She wasn't the woman who'd picked up a hitchhiker in a snowstorm 6 years ago. That woman had been afraid, desperate, helpless. This woman was ready. Sarah and Daniel positioned themselves 2 blocks from the facility. Daniel held the shield device, calibrated and ready. Around them, morning traffic flowed normally. People walking to work, sipping coffee, checking phones. Normal Tuesday morning. None of them knew they had 7 hours to live. "Should we warn them?" Sarah asked, not for the first time. "We discussed this," Daniel said gently. "Mass panic would kill more people than the collapse. Stampedes, accidents, chaos. This way, at least some die peacefully, unaware." Sarah hated it, but he was right. They'd run the calculations 1,000 times. Warning people would save maybe 100 while killing 300 in the panic. So they waited. At 11:45, Daniel's device chirped. "Timeline surge detected," he said. "It's starting." The collapse wasn't visible at first. No explosions, no fire, no screaming. Just a subtle wrongness in the air. A shimmer like heat waves on summer asphalt. But it was March and cold. The shimmer spread from the facility outward, slowly, inexorably, a sphere of non-existence growing at walking speed. Daniel activated the shield. A bubble of normal space formed around them, maybe 20 feet wide. Reality stayed solid inside, while outside, the world began to erase itself. Sarah grabbed people as they walked past, confused and frightened. "Get in here," she yelled. "Stay close to us. Don't leave this space." A woman with a briefcase, a man in a suit, a teenager on a skateboard, a mother with a stroller. They crowded into the bubble, pressing close, not understanding but terrified enough to obey. More people came, 30, 40. The bubble strained, flickered. Daniel adjusted the device, sweat beading on his forehead. "I can't hold this many," he said. "Try," Sarah said. The sphere of non-existence reached them. Sarah watched in horror as buildings simply stopped existing. Not collapsing, not exploding, just ceasing to be. Cars on the street vanished mid-drive. People walking on sidewalks blinked out of existence mid-step. 40,000 souls gone in minutes. Inside the bubble, 53 people huddled together, crying, praying, clutching each other. The mother held her baby close, tears streaming down her face. Sarah held them all together, her arms around as many as she could reach. "Stay calm," she said. "You're safe. We've got you." The collapse reached its maximum radius, 2 miles in every direction from the facility. Then, slowly, it stopped. The shimmer faded. Reality stabilized. Where buildings had been, there was nothing. Just empty space. A perfect spherical void in the heart of Denver. 40,000 people had lived in that space. Now there were 53. Daniel's device went dark, battery depleted. The shield collapsed. They stood in the open air, survivors on the edge of a crater that shouldn't exist. Behind them, sirens wailed. Emergency services arriving. Media helicopters overhead. The world discovering what had happened. Sarah looked at the people she'd saved. 53 faces, shocked and traumatized, but alive. Not enough. Would never be enough. But it was something. Sarah Chen had survived March 14th, 2031. She'd proven the newspaper wrong. She'd changed the timeline. Just a little. Just enough. And somewhere, in a time 6 years past, a version of Victoria sat in a government office and realized the calculations had changed. The media descended within hours. Sarah and Daniel were separated, questioned, tested. How had they survived? Why were they at the epicenter? What was the device Daniel carried? They stuck to their story. They'd been researching quantum anomalies. Happened to be nearby when the collapse occurred. The device was experimental shielding technology. Pure luck they were there. Nobody believed them, but nobody could prove otherwise. The 53 survivors were heroes. Miraculous salvation. Divine intervention. The stories spread, grew, became legend. The truck driver and the scientist who saved people from the void. But Sarah knew the truth. They hadn't saved people. They'd just failed slightly less badly than everyone else. Emma drove down from Nebraska 3 days later. She found Sarah in a hotel room, staring at news coverage of the disaster. The death toll had stabilized at 39,947, 53 saved. "Mom," Emma breathed, throwing her arms around her. "I thought," the news said, "I thought you were dead." "I'm here," Sarah said, holding her daughter tight. "I'm here." Daniel was there too, looking exhausted but alive. Emma hugged him just as fiercely. "You saved her," she said. "Thank you." "We saved each other," Daniel said quietly. Over the next months, investigations continued. The facility's research was shut down, classified, buried under layers of government secrecy. The company that built it dissolved, lawsuits filed, settlements paid. The timeline had changed just as Daniel predicted. The collapse had happened, but earlier, smaller, different variables, and Emma never took a job at a research facility, never worked with experimental viruses, never became patient zero. 4 million people lived who would have died. Sarah had proven Victoria wrong, had proven that individual choice mattered, that one person could change the course of history, but she'd also proven Victoria right. 40,000 had still died. The math was brutal, undeniable. 6 months after the collapse, Sarah visited Daniel at his house. They sat on the porch, drinking coffee, not talking much. What they'd been through didn't need words. "Do you ever regret it?" Sarah asked finally. "Coming back, getting stuck here?" "Every day," Daniel said honestly. "Then I see Emma. See her alive and healthy and free. And I think maybe it was worth it." Emma was 17 now, brilliant and fierce. She'd changed her college plans, decided to study physics and temporal mechanics, said she wanted to understand what had happened in Denver, maybe prevent it from happening again. She didn't know Daniel had come from the future, didn't know he'd risked everything to save her. To Sarah, that was for the best. Let Emma make her own choices without the weight of timelines and prophecies. But sometimes Sarah caught Daniel looking at Emma with an expression she recognized. Love, mixed with loss, mixed with the knowledge of futures that would never be. He'd saved her, but he'd also lost her. The Emma he'd married in another timeline didn't exist anymore. This Emma was different, would make different choices, might never love him at all. Sarah didn't know if that was fair or not. But then, nothing about time travel was fair. You did good, Sarah told him. We both did. We saved 53, Daniel said. And prevented a plague, Sarah reminded him. 4 million people are alive because of what we did. Daniel nodded slowly. Still doesn't feel like enough. It never does, Sarah said. Years passed. The Denver collapse became history, a tragic event studied in classrooms. Monuments were built. Names were carved in stone. 40,000 people remembered, but not brought back. Sarah kept driving, though she avoided Denver now. Too many ghosts, too many memories of the day reality broke. Daniel stayed in Colorado, working as a consultant on quantum physics, careful never to reveal too much knowledge. He and Emma remained close, though not in the way he'd once hoped. She saw him as a mentor, almost a second father. Nothing romantic, nothing like the timeline he'd lost. He seemed okay with that, mostly. Emma graduated college at 21, brilliant and driven. She took a position at a new research facility, different company, different focus. Not the place from Daniel's memories, not the place that would have made her patient zero. Sarah worried anyway, called her daughter every day, checked in, made sure Emma was safe, healthy, happy. On Emma's 22nd birthday, Sarah drove to Colorado to celebrate. The three of them, Sarah and Daniel and Emma, sat in a restaurant and toasted to survival, to choices, to futures uncertain, but theirs. Mom, Emma said as they were leaving, there's something I need to tell you. Sarah's heart clenched. What? I got a job offer, Emma said. A big one. They want me to lead a research team. Cutting-edge work. It's everything I've studied for. Where? Sarah asked. Boston, Emma said. I'd have to move. Start in 3 months. Sarah looked at Daniel. His face had gone pale. This was it, Sarah realized. The divergence point. The moment where Emma's timeline split permanently from the one Daniel remembered. That's wonderful, Sarah said, forcing herself to smile. I'm so proud of you. Emma hugged her. Thanks, Mom. I know it's far. But it's what I want, what I need to do. Daniel hugged Emma too. Congratulations, he said quietly. You'll do amazing things. But Sarah saw his face, saw the grief there. This Emma was leaving, starting a life in Boston, not staying in Colorado, not falling in love with a time traveler, not having his daughter. That timeline was gone, erased, changed. After Emma left, Sarah and Daniel sat in the parking lot. Neither moved to start their vehicles. I'm sorry, Sarah said. Don't be, Daniel said. She's alive, she's happy, she's going to do brilliant work. That's all I wanted. But it's not the life you knew, Sarah said. Life is never what we expect, Daniel said. I've learned that much. They sat in silence, two people who'd changed the future and lost pieces of themselves in the process. Do you regret it? Sarah asked. Every day, Daniel said. Then he smiled, sad but genuine. But I'd do it again. Every time. Sarah started her truck. So would I, she said. She drove home to Nebraska, Emma's future spreading out ahead, full of possibilities nobody could predict. Not agents in government offices, not time travelers with devices, not even mothers who loved their daughters more than anything. The future was uncertain, unknown, unfixed, and somehow Sarah had learned that was okay. Maybe even better than knowing. 10 years after the Denver collapse, Sarah Chen stood at a memorial service. March 14th had become a day of remembrance, like other tragedies. People gathered, read names, placed flowers. Sarah placed 53 white roses at the monument, one for each person she'd saved. Around her, thousands of people mourned the 39,947 who died. Emma stood beside her, now 31. She'd come from Boston for the anniversary. Her research was groundbreaking, they said, pushing the boundaries of quantum mechanics. Not the deadly research from Daniel's timeline. Something else. Something new. Daniel was there too, 56 now, graying but healthy. He'd never married, never had children in this timeline. That daughter he'd known, the one named Sarah, didn't exist here, but he'd made peace with that, mostly. The three of them stood together, survivors in different ways. They didn't talk about time travel anymore, didn't mention the devices or the agents or the choices that had led them here. Some things were better left in the past. After the service, Emma pulled Sarah aside. "Mom, I need to tell you something." Sarah's pulse quickened. "What is it?" "I met someone," Emma said. Her face glowed. "His name is Marcus. He's a mathematician. We've been working together for 6 months," and she paused. "I think I'm in love." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "That's wonderful, baby." "There's more," Emma said. "We're getting married. Next summer. I want you there. Both you and Daniel. He's been so important to me. I can't imagine the day without him." Sarah looked over at Daniel. He was talking to another survivor, smiling gently. He hadn't heard Emma's news yet. "I'll tell him," Sarah said. When she did, Daniel's face did something complicated, happy and sad and relieved all at once. "Marcus is a lucky man," he said quietly. "She's a lucky woman," Sarah said. "You helped raise her, Daniel. You taught her to think, to question, to be brilliant. She's who she is partly because of you. Just not the way I expected," Daniel said. "Is anything?" Sarah asked. "No," Daniel agreed. "Nothing ever is." The wedding the next summer was beautiful, small, intimate. Emma married Marcus in a garden in Boston. Sarah stood as mother of the bride. Daniel was there too, seated in the third row, smiling through tears nobody else understood. After the ceremony, Emma hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. I don't know what you did, but I know you saved Mom somehow. Saved me. Thank you." Daniel didn't correct her, didn't explain, just hugged her back and let her go. That night, Sarah and Daniel sat on a hotel balcony overlooking the Boston harbor. They were older now, tired, marked by years and choices and timelines that existed only in memory. "We did it," Sarah said. "We changed everything." "Did we?" Daniel asked. "Or did we just delay the inevitable?" "Does it matter?" Sarah asked. "We saved who we could save. We loved who we could love. We tried." Daniel raised his glass. "To trying." "To trying," Sarah echoed. They clinked glasses and drank. Two time travelers from different worlds, watching a future nobody had predicted unfold before them. Sarah Chen died at 71, not from a quantum collapse, but from simple old age, heart failure, peaceful, in her sleep. Emma was there, holding her hand. So was Daniel. In her final moments, Sarah thought about that snowy night in Nebraska, the hitchhiker who'd appeared from nowhere, the choice she'd made that changed everything. She'd saved 53 people, failed to save 40,000, prevented a plague that killed 4 million, lost futures and gained others. Was it worth it? She'd asked herself that question for decades. As consciousness faded, Sarah finally knew the answer. Yes. Because trying was always worth it. Because choice mattered, even when the outcomes were terrible. Because being human meant caring, fighting, refusing to give up even when the math said you should. She thought of Emma, married, happy, living a life nobody had predicted. She thought of Daniel, alone but not lonely, having saved the woman he loved even if she never loved him back. She thought of 53 people who'd lived when they should have died, who'd had children and grandchildren, who'd spread through the world like ripples in a pond. Small changes, but changes nonetheless. Sarah Chen closed her eyes for the last time, and she was smiling. Daniel lived another 15 years, becoming a respected physicist. He never revealed his origins, never told the truth about where his knowledge came from. He just taught, guided, helped humanity understand the universe a little better. He never married, never had children in this timeline. The daughter he'd known, the one named Sarah, existed only in memories of a future that never happened. But he'd saved Emma, and Emma had saved herself. And that timeline, however different from what he'd expected, was beautiful in its own way. He died at 83, leaving behind papers on temporal mechanics that wouldn't be fully understood for another generation. Among his possessions was a silver device, battery long dead, that nobody could identify or explain. It was donated to a museum, labeled as an experimental quantum apparatus. Visitors walked past it without understanding what it was, what it had done, what futures it had changed. Emma Chen lived to be 94. She never knew the truth about Daniel, about time travel, about the timeline where she became patient zero. She just knew she'd been loved fiercely by her mother and guided kindly by a man who'd been like a second father. She did brilliant work, changed the world in small ways, taught students who taught other students, lived a life that mattered, not because she saved millions, but because she lived honestly and tried her best. And somewhere, in a government office in a time that exists but isn't fixed, agents monitor timelines and calculate outcomes. They study the Denver collapse, the 53 survivors, the plague that never happened. They debate whether Sarah Chen and Daniel were heroes or villains, whether their interference saved the world or doomed it in ways not yet visible. But the agents don't understand. They think time is a machine that can be controlled, calibrated, optimized. They're wrong. Time is a river, flowing forward, splitting into countless branches. You can't control it. You can only swim, make choices, hope the current carries you somewhere good. Sarah Chen understood that. Daniel understood that. They didn't try to control time. They just tried to survive it. To save who they could save. To love who they could love. To try even when trying seemed hopeless. And in the end, that was enough.